So today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about adjustable V-bars. So behind me here, I've got a couple of different bows mounted with three of the most kind of popular or common V-bars available on the market. So the first we'll start off with is the Bee Stinger V-bar. So this V-bar here, I shot from 2013 or 14 up until recently. So this used to be kind of the standard for adjustable V-bars on the market before Shrewd and Win&Win kind of entered with their own adaptations of it. So with this Bee Stinger adjustable V-bar, it's very, very good. So you do have these kind of like engraved markings on the side. I'm not sure how clearly you can see that there, but you have lines on the top of the V-bar for your adjustment out this way and your vertical adjustment as well. This V-bar bolts directly into the riser, so there's one big screw that goes in back into the riser or the eyebolt or the extender. That's a really cool feature because it keeps it pretty well locked in place. I used to run this with an eyebolt in between the V-bar and the riser just to push it out a little more from my grip. The difference with this versus something like the Win&Win is it's a quick disconnect. So all you do is kind of rotate it one turn, pull it out like that, spin back in, another turn to lock it in place. That's a really cool feature as far as time saving goes. One of the issues I found with this V-bar is out of a recurve, for some reason, my long rod and my side rod would always find a way to kind of work themselves loose. So I'd be shooting and I'd end up kind of a third of the way out of this kind of pocket here. And once or twice I remember not noticing and having a side rod actually fall out of my V-bar. That only happened, like, I'm talking once or twice over maybe the 8 years or so that I used this particular V-bar. So the Bee Stinger V-bar was very good. I just wasn't a fan of quick disconnect on a recurve. I found that that kind of worked its way out. Out of my compound, I had no issues with this V-bar, but yeah, something about the recurve, they'd never quite stay seated in these little pockets. And the trouble with the quick disconnects is if you lose them, you're kind of stuffed, and not many places actually keep them in as replacement parts. So I was lucky that I had two of these, so I had a spare bow, but I lost one of the lugs of my long rod on a trip. To get a replacement from that meant I had to order it from the States, wait a couple of weeks, and it was out of action that whole time. So if I didn't have a spare, then that kind of renders the whole thing unusable. So I'm not a massive fan now of quick disconnect on a recurve. The other thing I found with this, and a few customers had this as well, sometimes the teeth in the V-bar wouldn't quite lock together. And there are a few of these, because I think I've owned 3, maybe 4 of these, just over different bows. And 1 or 2 of mine, they just come loose after a couple of weeks every single time. One of these V-bar joints would just loosen off. And you'd hear it, even before it would loosen, it would just rattle. This one's pretty good. It hasn't got any rattle to it, but yeah, it was kind of luck of the draw a bit whether you got one with the teeth settled properly or whether you'd have that rattling noise. So overall, I mean, I was really happy with this. Those were a few of the little issues I picked up on, but again, that was just off a recurve, off a compound, it was fine, and more often than not, the models I got with these, pretty good. Now, this is heavy. There are heavier ones on the market now, but this weighed, I think it was about 7 ounces for the Bee Stinger V-bar, so it wasn't a light V-bar, but this was kind of the first high quality adjustable one that was on the market. Now, if you look at the others. So Shrewd came out with their own Atlas V-bar in the last couple of years. So this kind of took the faults of the Bee Stinger V-bar and fixed them, is my perspective on that. So the same thing, it's a quick disconnect. So I've got this mounted on my citation, so mounted on the compound. I'm only using it as a single mount, so I've removed the mount from the other side. Same thing with this, one big Allen screw straight into the front to lock it to the bow. The annoying thing about the Shrewd is it doesn't come with the mount at the front for your long rod. So I've sold a few of these, customers have gone to set them up, they've gone to screw their long rod in and they can't, because there's no quick disconnect mounted to the front of the V-bar, which is a little bit of a pain. So with this one, I've had to substitute a bee stinger, quick disconnect and screw it into the front, or you'd have to run a long enough eye bolt to go through that. So that's a little bit of a pain with the Atlas. Apart from that, it is pretty much a tank. Like, it hasn't moved. It's got really, really fine markings. If I can get those close on the side there for adjustment. So it's even more precise, like the lines are a lot closer together than that of the bee stinger. So you've got really, really good adjustment in this. It also comes with a bow sling attachment to it as well. And it's just very heavy again. I think this is like 7.5, 8 ounces for the dual V-bar. So it's heavier again than the bee stinger. And I mean, it has to be, because you've got a lot of moving parts here. It's a very bulky V-bar. Works great on my compound, doesn't come loose. But again, I just think if we look at it from a recurve perspective, I just think it's a bit on the heavy side. Like, you've got an 8 ounce V-bar. A lot of archers won't even put 8 ounces of weight on their rods. So you're losing a lot of weight, especially if you're a junior archer or you're just kind of starting. That's a lot of extra weight on your bow just in that mount. But from a compound perspective, this is probably one of the best V-bars I've used, because it's rock solid, really, really fine micro adjustment there on the side as well. It's just a little bit annoying that it doesn't come with that long rod adapter or quick disconnect, so that's something you have to get separately as well. Now the last V-bar, which I've only just started using, is the Win&Win CX AD V-bar. This one weighs just over 4 ounces, so this is half the weight of the Shrewd, and yeah, close to half the weight of the bee stinger. So this is an all carbon V-bar. Some of the cool features about it is it actually uses kind of reverse locking thread, so you've got to turn it anti-clockwise to tighten, clockwise to loosen, so it's very unlikely to come loose on you. This one I've actually left loose, just so you can see how well it holds the adjustment. So with the bee stinger and with the Shrewd, if I have it slightly loose, it will rattle, and it just loosens and loosens and gradually just kind of falls off. This one here, I've kind of left it, I don't know, maybe a quarter turn or a half turn off being tight. I can turn this, and if I strum my bow, there's no rattle, there's nothing coming from that, and it holds its position as well. So that's really cool. Like I said, with the bee string, I used to get annoyed where the teeth would kind of come loose and my rod would just kind of drop as I was shooting. So with this, even if I don't fully tighten it, it's still holding its position. So I can move that by hand, strum the bow, there's no rattle, and it's staying in position as well. Another small feature about these I like is that they have these smaller Allen screws on the side here. Now with the Shrewd and the bee stinger, I couldn't use my biter Allen keys to tighten those up. And I just have like an Angel field quiver, and I'm not going to throw 2 or 3 sets of Allen keys in there just to be able to adjust the V-bars. So another small feature of these, it was really nice to actually be able to use my biter keys to tighten these up. The only kind of nitpicky thing I'll say, and this isn't as an archer, this is as a shop, the packaging it comes in is this kind of like container here. That's really hard to display. So at the moment in the shop where we have our V-bars and stabilizers and stuff displayed, everything's on a hang tag with a lock. This can't really sit there unless I put a shelf in, and then that takes up heaps of room. So they kind of have to sit below the counter. So as a selling point, when you're showing people over the stabilizer area, it's very easy to forget that you've kind of got these under the counter. So I think they lose a little bit of their ability to sell just because of this packaging. So it'd be really cool to see them with a hang tag. You can hang up on the shelf, but again, not going to make a difference to a consumer. That's just me nitpicking as a shop. The weight's one of the biggest things with these, because they are so light. I think they're great for a recurve archer, because you're halving, you know, compared to a Shrew, you've got another 4 ounce available, which you can put onto your rods. Or if you're a starting archer, that's just 4 ounces less you're having to lift up when you're shooting. Like I said before, the V-bar itself is carbon fiber. I believe the actual teeth and the locking mechanism comes from Switzerland, so that's imported as well. So it's a very, very strong locking system there. Like I was showing you before, when it's even slightly loose, I can move it, it will still hold its position. So in conclusion, I'd recommend the Win&Win V-bar for any recurve archer. and I think the Shrewd Atlas is now the pinnacle V-bar for compound archers. Price-wise, these are all very similar. I think the Win&Win will sell in Australia from anywhere from about $190 up to around $240, $250. The Bee Sting is fairly similar, and I think the Shrewd is $200 plus, so they're all fairly similar brackets. But as a recurve archer, definitely I'd recommend the Win&Win CX AD, and for compound would be the Shrewd Atlas V-bar. So all these V-bars we've gone through today are available at elizaarchery.com.